Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth. This country makes it a point to bend over backwards to insulate certain people from punishment, and then try to pretend to be astonished when those people commit some ghastly act of violence. Ethan Crumbley committed a mass murder with a gun given to him by his parents, and even after teachers caught him in class writing notes saying that he was going to shoot up the school, nothing was done about it. So these days, Crumbley's cooling his heels in an adult detention center, but the judge says that every month he'll evaluate whether or not the little psycho remains in an adult facility, but if he's really good and doesn't go committing any more mass murders, they'll transfer him to a juvenile facility. In the meanwhile, Crumbley's court-appointed guardian is trying to help him continue his education. I'm not making that up. His guardian claims that Crumbley, who's a mass murderer, I would remind you, is thinking about what path he wants to proceed with as far as his educational options goes. In the meanwhile, Crumbley's supposed to be taking classes online, and the jail is now being told that they have to provide him with a laptop. Michigan residents, this is your tax dollars at work. And lest I forget, Crumbley's attorneys are working on a psychiatric evaluation, because that train is never late. They're talking about him as if he was still on the outside, still going to high school and weighing what options for college he wants to pursue, as if they fully expect this little psychopath to ever see the outside of a prison. But then again, why not? Even if he doesn't get off scot-free, there's always a chance that he could be released later on, and if history's any guide, depending on your skin color, that's how it may play out. For those old enough to remember, before the Columbine massacre, there was another mass murder at a school, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Mitchell Johnson, who was age 13 at the time, and Andrew Golden, who was age 11, brought guns to their middle school. They pulled the fire alarm, then they took up a position outside of the school in the woods and began firing. They killed 4 students and a teacher and wounded 10 other children. Now, these 2 little animals were eventually caught and put on trial, but it was decided that they would be sent to reform institutes. And because they weren't black, because they weren't minors, they would be released at age 18 because the state couldn't legally hold them in a juvenile facility after all. They hadn't been tried as adults. Now, Arkansas brought a facility in 1999 which enabled the state to be able to keep them locked up, but only until they turned 21. Mitchell Johnson was released in 2005. Andrew Golden was released from prison in 2007. Now, Golden had changed his name by then, and it was found that he had tried to obtain a handgun, but his application was rejected when it was found that he left his incarceration off of his application. Andrew Golden died in a car accident in 2019. This is a photo of Andrew Golden that he took with his father shortly before the massacre. Now you'll notice, of course, that he's wearing hunting camo and he's brandishing a handgun. You see, the parents who groom these little monsters, they think it's cute to do stuff like this. They think it's cute to give children handguns. As far as they're concerned, I'm raising a warrior. But the problem is, under white supremacy, there's no need for warriors. They got all control. Instead, it's a matter of, I'm raising killers. Well, you can't exactly have somebody who's a killer unless they kill, now can you? And as for Mitchell Johnson, predictably, he's been in and out of trouble with the law ever since his release. He was arrested in 2007 and found to have a handgun in his possession, which wasn't illegal for him, but he was also hit with a controlled substance case too. Now, while out on bond for that charge, Johnson got himself arrested a second time. This time, it was for taking a customer's debit card while he was on duty at the gas station he was working at. I cannot imagine the depths of desperation that the gas station owner would have had to been in to hire a man who he knew was a mass killer. Maybe he thought that nobody would dare try to shoplift from the place if they knew that the convicted psycho was on the payroll. So the lesson here is, if you want to commit a mass murder, get it in early and make sure you got the complexion for the protection. But there's also a safety net for the parents of these creatures too. Ethan Crumbley's parents have had their own legal problems, and I'm not just talking about their abortive attempt to try to flee the country. Writing bad checks, DUIs, not paying child support. So, as we could have guessed, the apple didn't fall far from the tree at all. And yet the parents, for their own crimes that they've committed in their own right, the prosecutors in Michigan don't want Ethan Crumbley's name to be used in his parents' trial. This is the prosecution who pushed for that. They claim that they want to deprive Crumbley of the fame that he craves. But the truth is, this is about not stigmatizing people of a certain demographic. People already know this little animal's name. The prosecutor can't keep the media from mentioning his name or stop us from doing it either. So why even try? We already know why these little monsters commit these crimes, because they live in a society that allows it. They've seen teenage killers like Kyle Rittenhouse kill 2 people and then grievously wound a 3rd, and rather than go to prison, he's let go and made a celebrity for the far right. Whenever some serial killer who happens to be of a certain demographic commits some kill spree, the white media always treats them like some kind of dark genius. They make documentaries about them, TV shows and movies based on them. The white media does its level best to humanize them, no matter how many people they've murdered. Like the Las Vegas shooter who murdered 58 people at a country music concert. Gee, you never see that kind of body count after a rap concert. Yet the white media talked about this guy's job and his aspirations. They reported on him as if he was one of the victims and not the mass murderer. Now, on the other hand, whenever a black suspect is accused of a killing, anyone, the white media doesn't portray them as some dark genius. Instead, they're just a crazy nigga with a gun. Crumbley's parents bought him that gun, just like Andrew Golden's father did for him. When they were told that he was exhibiting behavior that was disturbing, the school didn't immediately expel him. They let him stay. His parents didn't reprimand him. Instead, they told him to be more careful. He was mollycoddled every step of the way. This didn't just happen, it was allowed to happen. The same prosecutors who did nothing about the crimes that Ethan Crumbley's parents committed, that's the same mentality that's at work now, both in the trial of his parents and him. They're caught on the horns of a dilemma, all these prosecutors. These guys are trying to thread a very fine needle. How do they maintain the principle of white immunity from law while at the same time protecting themselves from all of these killers who have been emboldened by all the years, if not decades, that they've been able to give the middle finger to the same law? You see, if Ethan Crumbley's parents had been punished the same way that we are, he would never have had the opportunity to go on some shooting spree because his parents would have been felons, and that means they wouldn't have been able to legally possess a gun. The white media hasn't quite begun playing the sad violins for Ethan Crumbley and his parents yet, but I'm sure that they'll get around to it. After all, you gotta lay the groundwork for the fact that this is an anomaly. This isn't normal. Well, for these people, it's not normal. But we can already guess what kind of defense that they're going to be trying to use. Why, Ethan Crumbley, he knew something was wrong, but he didn't get the help that he needed. Why, he was in class writing notes. He was telling people that he needed help. He didn't get the help that he needed. The school failed him. His parents failed him. The system failed him. Of course, as we all know, the system didn't fail at all. It worked exactly the way that it's supposed to. But of course, you're not supposed to say that, and you certainly shouldn't be trying to wage a war to make sure that there's equal justice under the law. Because after all, when a lot of those people in that town are going to be looking at the Crumbley parents, they're going to be also knowing that these guys, they have their own DUIs, just like Ethan Crumbley's parents do. And why, you got some child support payments you're not talking about. Sure, they put the black man out there on the news, but there's plenty of white parents out there who ain't paying their child support. And as far as writing bad checks goes, well, there's probably a few of them who are like that too. So they're going to be looking at Ethan Crumbley's parents and seeing themselves, not merely on the surface, but also the behavior as well. And they'll be looking and going, well, do we really want to cut the same line that connects us to our immunity from law? Because, hey, if you're going to enforce the law against one of them, now you got to do it for all of them. So the phony indignation from the white media and the white government, that doesn't impress me at all. It's all part of the socio-ethnic theater that they're putting on, which is some horrible act of mass violence that could have been completely and thoroughly prevented occurs, and then they all pretend to be equal parts shocked and amazed and dumbfounded. Oh, we don't know what the world to do about it, and even if we did know, it wouldn't be feasible, couldn't get through a legislature, so things just stay the way they are, don't they? Now, when black people are concerned, Whenever a black person's concerned, all of a sudden, there's no legislative gridlock. They can write the laws, they can get them passed, they know exactly what to do. Now, from what some of these white media articles are saying, Ethan Crumbley is rather fond of reading Harry Potter books. That certainly makes sense. Harry Potter happens to be a Caucasian teenager who has magical powers, and he's able to do whatever he wants, and the adults don't seem to have much control over him. Now, I'm not familiar with the Harry Potter books, I haven't seen the movies, but I wouldn't be surprised if Harry Potter kills a few people. All justified, of course. And even without having read the Harry Potter books or seen the movies, I'm willing to bet that Harry Potter doesn't die some valiant death at the end. No, I would imagine that he rides his broomstick, or whatever the world he does, off into the sunset to go enjoy his life, no matter how many lives he's taken. Makes sense that Ethan Crumbley would be fond of that kind of story. In his mind, that's art imitating life. Or rather, death. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Justin Marcus, Elaine Zanga, Alice Ransom, Mark Singleton, and Keith. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.